The podcast that you're about to listen to may cause some listeners to consider shaving off their eyebrows.
How you doing, everybody? Been a long time. How you been? How's life treating all you guys out there in the world? I guess it's been treating me okay, you know. I haven't done a podcast since December, so I guess that would mean that this would be the first podcast of the year, 2024. And, there's a reason for that, I guess. That spark, that flame, that desire to make a podcast, sit down and talk, it really hasn't kind of hit me. And I had kind of told myself for a while now that I wasn't going to really be talking about this thing that I want to talk to you about today. But I think that it's important for me to talk about this today because I think that in a lot of ways right now, emotionally, I guess, or, even maybe in some ways, even creatively, those kinds of things, I'm kind of paralyzed, emotionally. I'm not going to talk about this. I'm going to wait because I think that what the story I was about to tell was just so bad, the series of events that were so bad that I don't want to ruin everybody's day. But I guess the long and the short of it is, I lost a very good friend of mine, more than a friend, to suicide. And basically it was somebody that was extremely important to me in my life, and not my wife. She's still with me, don't worry. But I am in a state of mind and a state of heart, really, where I'm stuck. I feel like I'm stuck. Like my heart is broken in a way that it has never been broken before. Because, this friend of mine that I lost was about a year older than me. And it wasn't quite the same, as losing my parents. Like, my parents were elderly. They were older, and yeah, it was sad, and it still is, But this situation that happened not too long ago, man, it was really, really a surprise, Nobody saw it coming or expected it. I certainly didn't. And with that comes a whole host of thoughts and memories and would've, should've, could've, what ifs and all that, and the questions of why, why somebody does that kind of thing. And, I have to, even like nowadays, I have to be careful about how I talk about it because I might trigger somebody, or like YouTube might do some bullshit, like, because I'm talking about it, So that was like another reason to not do it. It was like almost like this, okay? Like, I didn't feel I could do another podcast until I got this thing off my mind and off my chest, But I didn't feel like I should. I still don't feel like I should really be talking about it yet. I don't really think I'm ready to, but I just can't do anything podcast-wise until I talk about this at least a little bit, because I really am stuck. I am emotionally in a place where I never have been before. You know, I've never had my heart broken by somebody that I loved this much. I mean, this was a very, very close friend to me all of my life, you know? And to have that situation, you know, end the way that it did, it couldn't have been worse. You know, I've been thinking about that. You know, when someone does that to themselves, you know, they take their own life, it's really the ultimate act of selfishness, because they leave behind all these people that love them, you know, and there are no answers to the questions. You know, there is no way to answer the questions that I have. You know, it's so awful. And I find myself, as time goes by, you know, this situation I'm talking about happened back in July. And at first it was shocking, at first it was sad, and all those things, you know. But as time goes by, I think, and this is how it feels so far anyway, right now, the wound is getting bigger. You know, it's not healing. It's getting bigger as each day passes by, you know? And this person was so important to me my whole life. I mean, like, since I was a child, we were friends, you know, and we loved each other. I mean, I can't say that enough. I mean, it's so difficult to even consider I'm saying it, you know. And like I was saying, as each day passes by, each month passes by, this wound on my heart and on my brain, on my soul really, is not getting better. It's getting worse. And I have to consider that, you know, like, what is the future really like for me? You know, when does this kind of trauma, you know, this kind of sadness, like, wow, is that even the word for it? Sadness? It's beyond sadness. I don't even think they have a word for it yet. Like how I feel right now, you know? But I am creatively kind of like stuck. I'm like paralyzed. I'm like, you know, it really is something I'm contending with. And yeah, you know, I've managed to, you know, put together an album. Some of you may have been checking out, called Days Away, a new PC3 album. But, you know, that album is a tribute to this person. I mean, this situation I'm in it's like trying to come out of me, you know, like I've got to get it out. And I guess that's kind of why I'm doing this podcast today. You know, I didn't really want to do a podcast. I certainly didn't want to be talking about this, at least not in detail, but here it is. You know, I have to say it. Like, if you, the listener right now, were sitting with me in the room I'm in, this is what I would be talking about, you know, because I need to talk about it. I need to process this experience because I'm afraid it's going to eat me alive, you know. It's really, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Trust me, okay? And man, I don't want to be talking about this shit in my podcast today. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be bringing people down with these kinds of things. Like, every time I do a podcast, like, somebody else died and I'm dealing with it, you know? Like, but it's real, man. You know, this is real. This whole thing. And it's so awful. So awful. The only way this situation could have ended worse than it did is if, like, he would have hurt somebody else and then hurt himself. That's the only way it could be worse. Other than that, wow, it's just, I can't believe it, you know? The story starts back in 1971 when we were born. And it ends, 2023, all of a sudden, by his own hand, in July. I woke up one morning, I was working on pipe choir music for the new albums that I'm getting ready to release, and I got the call, So, hopefully, having talked about it at least a little bit, it'll help me to kind of like move on with things, get over this hurdle. But I would imagine, and I've kind of been saying this to my wife, because I've obviously been thinking about it a lot, is like, I don't think that I'll ever really get over this. And I do really kind of feel that, like, on the day that I die, like if I live to be an old man, I will be thinking about this on that day. I mean, it's like, this will be with me for the rest of my life. I guess that's what I could talk about, really, right? I could expand on that idea that sometimes, every single one of us, everybody that's listening to this, and myself included, everybody that we've ever known or met, we all have these things that happen in our lives, and they're big, and they stay with us forever. It's like, you just don't know sometimes. You're going to wake up one day and you're going to get bad news or good news even, and it's going to change your life forever. It will never be the same again. And that doesn't happen to me too often, but damn, it really has happened, and here I am, in this emotional quagmire, a tar pit that I'm stuck in, and I'm trying to get out of it. I'm trying to be strong and come to some kind of conclusion about things so that I can at least set it down and move on in some way, but I don't know, man. Sometimes things happen that are so big and so serious, and it doesn't have to be a tragedy. It could be something great, but I've had some of those too, and I'm sure I'll have more in the future, but I just don't understand that, how anybody could ever do that to themselves. I have to be careful of what I say and how I say it here. Well, you know what? I don't know how anybody could commit suicide. I don't understand. Crisis is always temporary. When something bad is happening to you, don't worry too much about it, because it's going to end, And when something is good, it's happening to you in your life, enjoy it, because you know what? It's not going to last. Enjoy it while you have it, good and bad. It's all the same, It all passes. It all ends. So you have to, I have to really learn how to manage these emotions and these feelings, because it's not the end of the world. It's the end of the world for this person, this friend of mine, jackass, that did this. How could he do this? How? Why? What? Why? Tomorrow is another day. Like, yeah, things suck, sometimes, but to throw it all away? Come on. What a stupid thing to do, And the heartache and the grief that is left behind. The people that loved him. Like me, I loved him. Probably one of the only men, other than my father, that I've ever really loved. Really, really loved. I guess I love my brothers, but in some ways, I was even closer to this guy than I was with my own brothers. I mean, he was like the brother that I chose, And we were only a year apart in age, so that's probably part of it, And, I don't know. Oh, it just sucks. And if I were to do a podcast about anything else right now, it'd be bullshit. It'd be showbiz, I would be acting like everything's fine. But you know what? It's not. I'm a real person. I'm not a personality, a podcast personality or an influencer. I'm a real person. And I'm going through real things right now. And I have been since July. We're already into March. Today is March 1st, as I'm doing this podcast. And I look at the calendar and I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, will this grief, this sadness I feel, will it go away? Is it gonna go away? Damn, I hope it does, because man, I don't want to live like that. You know what I mean? I don't want my life to be like that. I don't. I refuse, man. I refuse to have my life be like that. I have a good life and a happy life. I have a good marriage. I love my wife, my best friend, And it's like, this stuff. She's helping me through. She's so good about it, so supportive, and just kind of like holding my hand, while I'm going through this thing. But man, I suppose it's kind of like, with this podcast today, it's kind of like an icebreaker, I have just been, paralyzed by this event. I've done podcasts since this happened, but, maybe when the holidays hit, that came around, I kind of just stopped dead in my tracks with the podcast thing. Like, I just didn't want to talk about anything. How much heartache, how much heartbreak can I endure? I lost my parents. First I lost my dad, then I lost my mom, then we lost the house. The house that I grew up in is gone. It was sold. And that was like losing another person for me. I'm a very not superficial and not materialistic, but I put a lot of value on things like houses or, anything, like things that have meaning in my life. I put value on that. There's, a dollar sign attached to it, but that's not what I care about. That house was not about money. It was about my heart, right? And I lost my parents and I lost that. So I lost like 3 people. That's what it was like. And then after, a couple months, 3 months or 5 months or something, then I lose, really, probably my best friend ever since childhood, my childhood best friend. And how much can I take? You know what I mean? Like, damn, it's just like, I don't know. If he was alive, I'd kill him. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck did you do that for? How could you do that? How could you do that? Now! We're in our 50s. Like, it's not that bad. Life's not that bad. And, people go, they make excuses and they go, It's like, they're trying to console me. And they say things like, oh, this and that, he's this and that's okay. And sometimes this happens and there's all that. And he was a good friend to me and I loved him. And it's like, you don't even know You know what I mean? Shut up. You don't know. He was my best friend. My best friend. I loved him. He wasn't just a guy I knew. He wasn't just another guy. He was my best friend. And he was a relative. He was related to me. You know, and it's like people try to console me, but it's like, shut up. You know, you don't know him. You don't know what... You don't know. You just don't understand. You know, there's so much history. There's so much stuff we did together. I mean, this is the guy who taught me how to shave. You know? It wasn't my dad. It wasn't my brothers or anybody else. It was him. He taught me how to shave. He taught me how to tie a tie. I mean, we were children. And we were growing up together. And he always did everything first. You know, I was a year younger, which, you know, when you're a kid, that's like a million years younger, you know, it matters. And he would do everything first in life. And we had our ups and downs. We had periods of time where we didn't really talk too much. We had periods of time where we didn't really talk at all. You know, long periods, because we would have a falling out and be stupid, and you know, we finally, you know, would reconnect like we did. And it was like heaven, you know, to talk to him again. It's one of those friendships where you leave off, you know, on some bad note or something, but then, you know, months or even years later, you pick it up again, and it's like no time has passed. You know, your friendship is rekindled and everything goes back to the way that it's supposed to be. And that's kind of like what happened. You know, him and I kind of reconnected after my mom's funeral, you know. And he didn't make it to my dad's funeral, but he made it to my mom's. And we reconnected, you know, and it was beautiful. It was great. And I was happy to talk to him again. And now this happens, you know. And yeah, here I am, you know, this idea that if I'm lucky, I'm going to get older, you know, like I'm going to age. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'll live to be 90, right? So I'll have like 40 years of life. And that's a lot of music and a lot of songs and a lot of ice cream and a lot of pizza, you know, a lot of good coffee, like I'm going to take a sip of right now. Hang on. But yeah, so if I'm lucky, I'm gonna get like another 40 years, right? And that idea of like that he's not going to be here with me. Like I didn't have to have him in my hip pocket, you know. We lived far away from each other geographically, so it was okay. He had his life there, I have my life here, and we could be friends, and that's okay, you know. We didn't have to hang out every day. He didn't have to like call me all the time, you know, that kind of thing. It was just kind of nice to know that he was out there somewhere running around, you know, and at some point in the future we would connect again, and he would make me laugh again, you know. He was one of the only people that I've ever known that could really make me laugh, okay? He knew how to make me really laugh. You know, a lot of people will be funny, they'll make jokes, and I'll giggle and I'll laugh. But he was different. The only person that I would say competes with him is my brother Steven, Steven is the funniest person that I've ever known, okay? But this person that I'm talking about today, who will remain nameless because I don't want any kind of, any kind of bullshit from anybody about it. Anybody that's listening to this that knows me knows who I'm talking about anyway. So it doesn't matter. It's not important. I don't want to say his name. It's difficult for me to say it, you know. Sometimes, you know. And yeah, this time, this sadness will pass. doing this podcast right now, like I'm doing, will be part of that healing. Trust me. Like I've said it 1,000 times on this podcast. It's like when something is on my heart or on my mind, as soon as I say it into this microphone, for some reason, it's like an exorcism. Like the spirit comes out, that feeling comes out, and I set it down, and I don't have to pick it up. So that's kind of, my thinking with doing this podcast today. It's not like any other podcast I've ever done before, because I'm not talking in hypotheticals or, thought experiments or anything like that. This is just hard reality, and I'm up to my eyeballs in it, It sucks, man. It sucks. It hurts. It hurts in places I didn't even know it could. There's so much of my life wrapped up in this guy, memories from all different decades of my life, just weddings and one time I was in a band, I was drumming in a band, and he went with me on the road. He toured with me, and it was the funnest time I have ever had traveling with a band. We had so much fun. It was the happiest time probably in my life. I had so much fun. We had money. We were older. The band I was in was really good. And we were traveling in a van and all that, but it was fun, And like other guys in the band were kind of distant from me anyway. They weren't really my best friends or anything. I was their drummer. It was a gig. It was a job. So taking a friend along with me, oh my goodness, the stories I could tell. I never had that much fun ever, with anybody ever. And that is the kind of thing that brings back a smile to my face. Or like, that's the good stuff, that will hopefully, as time goes by, cancel out some of this negative stuff, I never loved another man as much as I loved him, other than my father. My father was very unique, but he was my dad. He was older than me, and I kind of had accepted the idea, if things go well, he'll die before I do. I'm his kid. But with this guy, this friend of mine, this cousin, this relative, who taught me how to play guitar, who taught me how to swing a golf club, he taught me so many things. Taught me how to swim. I love swimming. I'm a fish out of water now. I love swimming. It's one of my favorite things to do. And he taught me how. He taught me how to play guitar, which is, what I do, And so it goes. As I'm sitting here talking, I can kind of feel that it's kind of feeling a little bit better already. Just saying it, getting it out, But, it is really kind of strange to consider how much my heart is broken. Like, I didn't know that could happen like that. I suppose in some ways it's good. I'm not numb to this kind of stuff, or, blasé, passive. It's like this stuff really, really, wow. Wow. I don't know. I guess maybe if you're listening to this podcast right now, maybe you can relate, or maybe in the future you will. You'll understand what I'm talking about. 'Cause something like this might happen to you. I hope not. I hope that nobody has to feel like this, but you know what? At the end of the day, at the end of all this, all of it, all those shit in life, that happens to us, that's happened to me and happened to him, I guess, is I just loved him. I just miss him. And I don't want to think about a future without him, but here we are. Here I am, and here he is not. He is not here anymore. And I may never see him again, and the only time I'll ever laugh with him is in my memories now. And that really sucks, because he was really, really funny to me, So, yeah, it's a requiem, for a friend. So, my happy innovators, if you were wondering where I went or why I wasn't making a podcast, I was making music, but I wasn't making a podcast. It was because I just couldn't. I couldn't talk. I didn't want to. I didn't want to talk about it. But now that I've gone over that hurdle and I've broken the ice, on this situation, maybe I'll get back on track with doing the talking thing, And if you have people that are in your life that you love, like you really do, maybe you guys are like fighting right now, you're at odds with each other about something very stupid, because everything is stupid, especially nowadays. Man, put that shit down and get back to the people that you love. Just do it. Life is too short. It is. And love is a great thing, it's what we live for. Love is what we live for. And yeah, maybe someday I'll write a book about it or something. There's so much. It could never fit into a 40-minute or hour-long podcast. It couldn't. There's just so much. So, yeah, anyway, sorry about the downer today. But thanks for helping me out, helping me get out of this tar pit that I'm stuck in. And oh, man, it's real. It's real. I can't believe it. I can't. When I think about it all now, it's like a dream, like a bad dream. I can't believe it. That he would do that, And then, that maybe I could have been a better friend. I was talking earlier about those questions that can't be answered because, he's like gone now. But like, why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you reach out to me and tell me that you were thinking about that? How could you do that to me? After all these years, 50 years, how could you do that to me? Ugh. How could you do that to everybody? Man, It is the ultimate act of self. The ultimate act of selfishness. Yeah. Anyway, happy innovators. Remember, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. Take it easy. Okay, happy innovators. Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the podcast to hear some new music. And, considering how serious the tone of this podcast was today, I'm going to share with you something that's a little bit special, kind of like breaking my rules and doing something a little bit different. But it's apropos to this podcast. I wrote a new song about all of this. It's not finished. It's not completely finished. Okay? But it's pretty far along. I think far along enough to share it with you here. A little exclusive of the new pipe choir music, And it's a song about this friend of mine that died. And so let's check it out. It's a song called The Good Brother, and it will be released on a future forthcoming pipe choir album. And oh man, if you're a pipe choir fan, stay tuned, because the next year or two there is going to be so much new pipe choir music, and this is just one of them. So here we go. The Good Brother by Pipe Choir. Let's check it out. Don't walk away. Tomorrow is another day. Brother, don't walk away. Brother, yeah, come on. Brother, the world is an empty home when you're lost and far from home. Going down in the afterglow, down in the afterglow. Don't just walk away, brother. Don't just walk away from me. Don't just walk away, brother. Don't just walk away. Tomorrow is another day. Okay, happy innovators. Seeing as this is kind of like the podcast where I'm breaking all the rules, I'm going to give you some more music today. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an explanation, too, about the PC3 album, Days Away. Okay? I had mentioned in the podcast earlier that this cousin, this friend of mine, my best friend, had gone on tour with me with one of the bands that I was playing in. And around that same time, the band I was in, my cousin, some girlfriends and everybody, wives and girlfriends, we all decided that we were going to take a vacation to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, a place called Corolla Beach. And we were going to rent a beach house for about a week and just hang out there together for a week. And it was probably, one of the best times I've ever had in my life. And it was like the first time I ever went to the ocean, really, with my friends, not with my family, but with my friends. And it was anything goes. It was a lot of fun, a lot of, partying, everybody just having a great time on the beach for a week. And it was on this trip, okay, that I had a really huge revelation, okay, out on the beach by myself one day, and it was a spiritual turning point for me in a lot of ways. And I'm not going to talk too much about that because, it's very personal and it was very real and deep. And, many years after this, I wrote a song called The Water of Fire, or Singing to the Sea. And that song was kind of like my broaching this topic of this day I had, this moment that I had on the beach, and my best friend, my cousin, was with me. He wasn't on the beach with me that day, but he was on that trip with me, and I was with him, okay? So I went out on the beach. I had this really amazing experience by myself. I came back to the house and he was there and we had dinner and the party started, that kind of thing. So he was with me, but not with me at this moment. Anyway, the point is, I did The Water of Fire, or Singing to the Sea. And that song was kind of abstract and, whatever. But it was one of the first Honest Wave songs I ever did. I think it was maybe 8 minutes or 10 minutes or something, or I forget exactly, maybe more than that. And And it was about this trip that I took to the Outer Banks, Corolla Beach, right? So, July 2023 happens, and I lose this friend, and he's gone, and I'm processing it, and this album, Days Away, starts coming out of me. All this music and these lyrics and this idea of paying tribute to him and to this experience I had and to this vacation that I had, days away from everything, days away from normal life and the world and, the problems of everyday whatever, right? Taking days away, going far away from home and far away from everything, even, conceptually in my mind, like just cutting off from the world just for a week, And since then, I've been on vacations. I've been to the beach and all kinds of stuff. I've had great vacations and great times with friends and all kinds of things. But this particular trip, this particular story was different than all those other times since that vacation. Okay, this was the first, and it was different, and it impacted me so much that it resonated throughout my whole musical career from that point forward. Okay, it's like, you know what I mean? How many times have I made songs about the ocean? Like it just comes out. Well, I started to make these songs, Days Away, Neon Nebula, Earth, what else? Windswept. There's more coming, by the way. I'm not going to reveal it all now, but the point is that I made a whole PC3 album out of it. I took the idea of the water of fire or singing to the sea, and I extrapolated that out into maybe like 6, 8, or 10 songs, some of which are released, some of which are yet to be released, but all this material came from this one experience. And like I said, it's like a tribute to him and a tribute to that experience that I had, very profound experience I had on the beach by myself, alone, and it was one of those God moments. It was not between me and anyone else. It was just me and my creator, speaking to me in many ways, just kind of speaking to my heart. Okay. And it was the seed for all this music, and so this is the tribute. This is it. This is the best way I could probably honor this friend of mine, how much I loved him. Because if I had words to say it, then I wouldn't have loved him enough. I mean, I can't come up with all the words that I feel, So I'll do it through song. I'll do it in music. And, it sounds corny, I guess, but that's how this stuff works, at least for me. So I'm going to share with you now that you have a little bit of understanding about PC3 Days Away, the album. I'll share with you the song that I'm the most proud of off the album, and by far, without question, in my opinion, okay, maybe the best video I've ever made for any song ever, okay? So, to cut the suspense here, I'm going to share with you PC3 Days Away the title track from the Days Away album, but not only is this my favorite track, the music and everything, but like I said, the video, I looked at it and I thought, I just hit the bullseye. So maybe you'll kind of agree with me. I guess I can give you a little bit of an explanation, because the video is really a shot of a woman walking on the beach, but that woman could be like a metaphor for me, okay? Because I did that same thing, I walked that beach. I walked the line of the ocean and the land, and there was nobody there. I was alone, and I'm an artist. Like I was taking it all in, and if you notice in the video, this landscape that this woman is walking on is very almost identical to where I was and what it was like. I mean, there was nobody. And I like how in this video that you're about to see, each shot is technically like a painting. It could be an oil painting, framed. But I love how it's all beauty. Not just the sand and the water and the sky, but the wind and the woman that's walking. She's beautiful. And if you notice, she's carrying a camera, And I love that idea of the artist, going into this environment on the hunt for inspiration. That's what I did. That's what I do. That is what I do. I go out into the world with a camera. I'm not literally holding a camera and taking pictures, but I go out into the world with this camera in my head, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? So when you watch this video, it's like a metaphor. It's like this thing that, I want every day. I want to be there. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in a snowy, cold environment. I want to be in a place where the wind is warm and there's nobody around and it's just gorgeous, man, And if I can't go do that today, like right now, I can't go there because I'm here. I can't go there. I can at least watch this video and just lose myself in it for a little while. Hopefully, my happy innovators, you'll be able to do the same thing. You'll be able to watch this video and get it, And if you can do that, then you get me. That's what I'm all about. So here we go. PC3 Days Away. Let's check it out. Peace out, everybody. And thanks for your patience.
way.